one of the things I often tell my new associates is, just pause real quick. I'm not sure if any of you have worked in manufacturing, and just look around. I'm not sure what you think you see, but let me tell you what I think you see. I think you see ideas. You don't see rocks and trees. You see walls and chairs. All of these things were not naturally created. They started out as ideas. And what you're going to walk out to is a floor full of people all working to make a singular idea accomplished. Think of all the people it took to build everything around you. And then take a step back and realize that that's not just this building. That's every building you go into. I mean, the amount of effort and energy that went into creating the modern world is an absolutely beautiful thing. And those ideas, they're unique. They're unique to the human evolutionary history. I love manufacturing first and foremost because it really gives humanity the best opportunity to truly express our creative endeavors.
Today on the podcast, we have Sam Fox. He is a plant manager for our Topeka facility, and he is an expecting father.
Yeah, fresh news, I suppose, for everyone but me.
Yeah, right. So expecting a baby.
Yeah.
Baby boy, congratulations, Sam.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm about equal parts excited and nervous with that.
As you should be.
I believe that. That's what I'm being told. That's what I'm being told. So
yeah, no. Well, we can edit that out if you didn't want to have that in the podcast.
I don't mind at all.
Okay. Well, then breaking news. We're excited. I mean, it'll probably be old news by the time this comes out, but it's still super exciting. I'm so happy for you guys, and the Polo family's growing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. We're excited too. All the challenges that are going to come with it. I mean, both of us have talked as individuals about wanting to be parents, and then a little bit of talking can go a long way sometimes. So yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I'm excited for you. I told Ellen it's horrible. You're going to love it.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm afraid of.
Right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, exciting days ahead. Now, so Sam is an incredible plant manager, has a lean, mean team, and they are really putting out some incredible work. And so I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today, Sam. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into Polo and how you got into the role that you're in today?
I can really start, when I was relatively young. I've always been very interested in mechanics and mechanical systems. I mean, growing up, my favorite television show was How It's Made.
Yeah.
Doesn't get more engineering than that. And so it was pretty clear from the start that engineering-esque work was going to be my forte. I was a math and science guy. Went to the University of Iowa and got my engineering degree. And then outside of that, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in engineering management of some style. And then ultimately Polo reached out to me, and I had a couple of pending opportunities, but none of them really grabbed my attention. And so I ended up moving with Polo due to it being close to where I was living at the time. And I kind of fell in love with it. Started out as a manufacturing engineer, moved my way through quality and product development. Every step of the way, there was a number of challenges, but a lot of learning opportunities. And every step of the way, my current boss, our COO, Brian Weber, asked me, what do I want? Where do I want to go? And from the get-go, I've always talked about wanting to be a plant manager. I mean, I'm a bit of an ambitious individual. I'd like to continue to move, but I knew that was a target I wanted. What I didn't know is that he was listening to me all those years from day one. And then about 4 or 5 years after I had been working with Polo in a number of engineering capacities, the facility at Topeka opened up. And that was when, surprising to me, Brian actually came and said, hey, I saw you haven't put your name in the hat for this. We think you should at least interview for it. And so in my mind, I, being a 28-year-old at the time, thought, well, that would be a great experience because there's no way I'm going to get it. And then one thing led to another, and I did. Moved down, and a couple years later, the facility's been pretty successful. I mean, there's opportunities everywhere, but we're pretty proud of what we've done.
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly you all have stood up that facility and how well you guys have managed the products that have come through it, and how pleased our customers are that get out there and get to see it, and getting it all up to all the certifications and really fast is just no small undertaking. So it's been an exciting couple of years. I do have to ask though, being a Southern guy, how'd you end up at Iowa for college?
Oh God, what an embarrassing story. Like many of us, I was a bit of a rabble rouser growing up. But with that being said, towards the latter half of my senior year, I had still not applied even to colleges. My family was pretty upset with me at the time. And so by the time I had started doing my application set, my options were relatively limited. A lot of schools, especially the SEC schools that I would have been predisposed to go to, their application windows had closed. I mean, this is in late March. For anyone that's familiar with application windows, that's usually pretty late. And so at that time, I knew I wanted to go to a big school, and I knew I wanted to go to engineering, and I was very limited on my options. And so with all of that being said, I was accepted into LSU and Iowa, based off the 4 or 5 options I had at the time. And I literally asked myself, which one's further from home? That happened to be Iowa by about 500 miles. And so I went there. My first day in the Midwest actually was my first day of class. I was really excited about the adventure. I've always been a bit of an independent person. And so when I got up there, I fell in love with it. I loved how novel it was. I loved the fact that there was snow. I'm from Georgia, and I think the first time I saw snow was when I was 14. And I was shocked by all the snow, all the 3 millimeters of it. So being able to actually enjoy that as a real weather phenomenon was very cool. So really to get away from home. I had a great home life, so there's nothing for me to really get away from, just being a rebellious teenager, That's
how I ended up at Auburn. It was far away from home, and totally get that. And fun to hear that, and it's true, because a dusting of snow in Georgia and people abandon their cars on I-75. It looks like a zombie apocalypse.
It is wild. And the city was shut down for weeks.
Yeah. And I have to support your choice of not choosing LSU too.
Oh yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do.
Their fans are obnoxious and they smell like corn dogs. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
I hate corn dogs.
Right?
Just kidding, by the way. I love corn dogs.
Yeah, corn dogs are good, but don't smell like them. All right, back to your job, back to what's relevant to this podcast. What is it about your job that you enjoy the most? What motivates you about it? What do you go home most proud of, when you're at the end of the day?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things, a lot of different things, to be honest with you. I suppose like a cliche answer could be something like the profitability of the facility, or being able to say that we hit customer deadlines, accomplish customer quality goals. And those things do motivate me. I appreciate those. Professional success always feels nice. But to be honest, the thing that I appreciate the most is the human element. Being able to work with large groups of people. The facility has approximately 75 headcount or something. Being able to help people both with their personal goals, as well as where their personal goals align with my professional goals, being able to find those alignment opportunities and have everyone leave feeling like they really won. Those are the moments. And especially if those come on the back of a lot of challenging efforts, being able to help others reach their own potential, and seeing them surprised by what they can really do. That's really the most motivational thing. The thing I like to go home and I really brag about, at least with my personal family and friends. So there's a lot of it, but it's the personal element. I really, really, really enjoy that.
That's cool to hear, and shows when you're at your facility and you see your associates, because I feel like they're firing. They're trying to get the goals that are ambitious, of units per day. And you can see that they're, keeping each other on task and all working together. And so you've got something really special where I definitely can see the respect that the associates at your plant have for you, and when you speak, they are listening.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share an experience with us that shaped your leadership style?
Yeah, I mean, maybe one of the first ones, I suppose at the time I didn't even know it was going to shape my leadership style the way that it did, was when I got into an argument with my grandmother when I was maybe about 17, 16, something around there. At the time, I was living with her and my grandfather, and being a standard rebellious teenager, we kind of often got at odds with curfew. I had a tendency to stay out pretty late, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And there was one day where we were really getting after it, and I just told her, "Look, I'm going to come home when I come home. I'm safe. I'm not doing anything stupid. I need you to trust me." Typically her responses are, "Look, I do trust you. I don't think you're doing anything silly. I also don't want to worry about you. And, it's 11 o'clock and you have school tomorrow," standard stuff. But this particular time I was exceptionally obstinate. And so instead of listening to her and coming home, I just dug my heels down and didn't. When I did end up coming home, maybe it was around 1 or 2 a.m. I was playing video games with friends. She had waited up for me, which was typical. But this time I noticed her face. It was different. She wasn't mad. She was sad. She wasn't angry. She was disappointed. And being able to feel the impact that her disappointment had on me, not because it made me riled up, but because it made me sympathetic, really had an impact on me. The kind of leadership style I try to employ when that leadership comes up to odds with authority is I want people to feel as if I am disappointed, not upset at them, not angry with them, right? I'm just disappointed that the choice that they made didn't necessarily align with the one that I expected. And the goal with that is I don't necessarily want people to feel like I'm forcing them towards a particular direction. The idea is I hoped we had aligned on the direction at first. And since I assumed we aligned and now we're misaligned, I'm disappointed that I wasn't made aware of the misalignment. To use a bit of a cliche, I want people to see me as a grandfather or a grandmother. And I'm hoping that what that does is it allows people to be an authority over themselves, right? I don't want people to be afraid of what I could do because I'm the plant manager. I want people to say, wow, we had a great idea and a great team ethic together, and maybe my actions kind of broke that team ethic. And maybe I should reflect a little bit on that for the future. That moment in my life when I really understood the power of disappointment shaped my leadership style dramatically. I am not the kind to raise my voice, to yell. I actually feel like if you end up getting to a point where you have to yell, you probably lost the argument already. That's kind of my trump card, is trying to be disappointed. And it's worked very well. I mean, nothing works perfectly, but it's served me well. It served me well.
Well, you are on the path to becoming a grandfather now. You've got the first step down.
First one step away, I suppose.
But that's a really good story and one I think a lot of people can relate to. So have like a new nickname for you, like Grandpappy Sam or something now. But
a lot of the folks at work call me Mountain Man Sam.
Mountain Man Sam?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Talking like a mountain man, trying to pull people up the philosophical mountain.
I like it.
Yeah, I just want things to align at all levels, right? I mean, obviously I have a goal, but I'm sure you do too, whoever you are. And I want to find ways for your goals and my goals to align. I don't want us to get into some kind of emotional or tonal match, right? The direction should be clear by the fact that we agree on where we should go. If we don't agree, then maybe the team dynamic isn't best for both of us, and that's okay. But let's talk that through initially. Once we get on the path, let's see it through and try to win together.
You've got a great collaborative atmosphere and a great team, and so it's cool to see. So when it comes to production, what's fulfilling about seeing it get to that end product, that passing the quality inspection and getting boxed up and going out into the world? What's fulfilling about that process for you?
Having a little bit of background in product development, being able to see ideas take shape in general is pretty cool. It's exciting to me to talk about, let's say a specialist arborist bag, or to talk about some kind of special governmental backpack or whatever it is with its bells and whistles, and then see it actually manifest. I mean, through the iterations, the cyclical updates, that's always cool. That's not necessarily related to production, though. You know, in my opinion, my favorite part of production is comparing one production run of a product to the next and identifying opportunities within those runs to make those runs either more efficient, less costly, easier ergonomically. You know, seeing the cycle to cycle iterations and the updates that come through that's really what I enjoy. Hitting the marks on deliveries, that's always lovely. Hitting the marks on quality, that's also awesome. And getting good customer report cards. I do take pride in my professional KPIs. But for me, I love seeing physical improvement and change, and how that change works towards what the vision ultimately was, which is a perfect process. We'll never get there, but working towards that is really what I enjoy. It's a pretty cliche engineering answer, I suppose.
But important to hear. And I think I've only had one other plant manager on the podcast before, and I love it because it just ties everything together. I mean,
awesome.
In sales, you work so many, you work through the PD side, you work through any supply chain things that might be implementing timelines, and then you work through different logistics and delivery and all that kind of stuff. But it all happens there. That's where it's all made, and that's where the associates are doing it, and that all the checks and all the stuff. So it's I've been able to walk some of the lines with customers and them look at things that you guys have done to improve the process, and ask different questions about how you do that or why you do that. And it's really impressive to see what your team has come up with to keep those lines running as best as they possibly can.
Yeah, well, they say it takes a village for a kid. It takes a village for a product. So we're doing the best we can, but it's only on the back of the support that we have. Thank goodness we have strong support.
Yeah, it's amazing how many smart people it takes to
yeah, for real though.
bring these things out into the market. So it's that's one of my favorite parts of the jobs. I feel like I'm sitting with the Thomas Edisons of today that are getting a medical product out, or like you said, something that serves our armed forces, and so all these products that can't afford to fail, and all the people that come together to make them come to life is something that is an awesome part of our job and an awesome part of being in manufacturing.
Yeah, it is. And it's easy to understate it. One of the things I often tell my new associates is, just pause real quick. I'm not sure if any of you have worked in manufacturing, and just look around. I'm not sure what you think you see, but let me tell you what I think you see. I think you see ideas. You don't see rocks and trees. You see walls and chairs. All of these things were not naturally created. They started out as ideas. And what you're going to walk out to is a floor full of people all working to make a singular idea accomplished. Think of all the people it took to build everything around you. And then take a step back and realize that that's not just this building. That's every building you go into. I mean, the amount of effort and energy that went into creating the modern world is an absolutely beautiful thing. And those ideas, they're unique. They're unique to the human evolutionary history. I love manufacturing first and foremost because it really gives humanity the best opportunity to truly express our creative endeavors. And then it allows those creative endeavors to kind of align with what society needs, right? And it's a powerful and beautiful thing. I really, really enjoy that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know when I came to Polo, one of my first weeks was at a trade show, a medical device trade show. I had no idea what I was doing. It was in California, and I was sweating trying to get a box of samples over to the floor, and one of the wheels had broken off the crate. So it was just a terrible, kind of baptism into the job. But it was crazy to me being in that space and just seeing that there is somebody that makes all of these little components, the tiny spring, this material or that mold and, you know, the machinery that does this. And it's just the ecosystem. This is one of the biggest trade shows I've ever seen. And there's just rows of booths for miles.
Yeah, I believe it.
Of this ecosystem. And now it's so wild to me that gets smaller and smaller and smaller every time that you go. You know people at the different booths. You work with them on different projects. Like those circles become tinier and tinier. But at the end of the day, like you said, manufacturing is hard.
It's very difficult.
It's and to get these things out into the world, there's just so many different things that can go wrong and do go wrong that we problem solve for. Yeah. And it's hard for somebody that makes one car or one, you know, product, and we make hundreds.
Yeah. One spring.
Right. Yeah. Across, you know, 4 different industries. And so there is no lack of challenges that we face just in this industry with tight deadlines, with high quality certifications and standards and FDA approvals and the FAA that we work with. I'm getting off on a tangent here, but I do feel like it's just incredible to see it all come together in your facility. What are some of the challenges that you see in manufacturing on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I mean, the principal challenge is really related to what Polo is kind of known for, which is the adaptability and flexibility element. I mean, it's very challenging, as we were mentioning earlier. It's very challenging to make a spring. So you can imagine, to your point, how challenging it could be to make 15 different SKUs, all of which have what amounts to 100 springs within them, or 100 different components. Being able to maintain the flexibility needed to manage the product scope we have and do it efficiently and profitably is definitely the most standard challenge. I mean, you know, those challenges bleed into the planning and scheduling of products and management of supply chain hurdles to the actual production process itself, you know, managing the different equipment setups and the different equipment knowledge scopes you need to maintain them, making sure that you have the best and latest version of the equipment so that it's actually efficient. Your associate team being properly trained and properly equipped, you know, that could either mean with literal tools or the mental fortitude for the day. We all have those difficult days. And trying to maintain all these variables, knowing that we're going to have to shift a dramatic amount of them in a day or two, it's very challenging. Maintaining profitability and flexibility, but that's also part of what makes it fun and rewarding. I've never worked in a manufacturing environment where you're really making one product all the time. You know, let's say candy bars or something along those lines. I would be a little worried about that for me personally, right? I don't know what kind of differences and challenges you may or may not walk into. Now, I'm sure those people have plenty of challenges, but I appreciate how unknown some of those will be for me. But that's definitely the hardest part, maintaining that flexibility while also being profitable.
Manufacturing candy bars does smell good.
I believe that. I believe that.
I was riding my bike past the Mars plant in Topeka.
Oh, yeah?
I was super hungry, hadn't eaten anything, and I got hit by a wave of chocolate. And I was just like, whoa. I was like, that was amazing. What you're talking about is what people look to for Polo, which is that, you know, we had a partner that talked about launching, scaling, and kind of legacy suppliers. And they looked at us as kind of the scaling, like the one that can pull up and pull down and react fast and be nimble. And I think when we work with these giant OEMs, that's a lot of the value that we bring to them, because they can't react that quickly in these large structures that are very bureaucratic with lots of red tape. And so we're able to be that nimble arm for them and move quickly and come up with solutions to get their products to them on time.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that you're working to the specs of the vastly different industries that we do serve? Your facility was FDA audited, you've got ISO certifications, you do military products, you do safety products, you do medical products, you do arborist products, you name it. So how do you work to ensure that you're within compliance for all those different regulatory bodies?
That's a very good question.
But before we get into that, this podcast is brought to you by Polo Custom Products. We are a custom manufacturer that specializes in sewing, sealing, and thermoforming. We work with project engineers, sourcing professionals, and buyers to design, engineer, and manufacture products that cannot afford to fail. If you're interested in working with us, visit our website at www.polocustomproducts.com and fill out a request for quote form. Now, back to the show.
I think that there's a couple of different layers, I would say, of effort that really go towards ensuring that we're compliant with all the different myriad of regulations. In addition to the ones you had just mentioned, a lot of those which are known industry-wide within whatever industry they touch, there's also whatever the customer specifications are too. Sometimes those are a little more niche and unique even above what those specific ones were. The first layer really comes down to having knowledgeable product development teams and trusting that they're educating themselves regularly, continuous improvement kind of from their perspective. In my realm of our business, I'm handed what amounts to a job process packet. Internally, we call them BOMs. I have to trust that the information listed in those BOMs is compliant with the information that is in those standards. Now, the second layer is I have a level of exposure to those standards too, right? If one of the standards is these cannot be blue, and I see on our BOM that it is blue, I am going to call it out. My teams who are also educated, my teams being my production management teams, my associate team, captain teams, they're also exposed and educated on the majority of these standards. They're also going to question that. So through our product development expertise, through our internal management expertise and exposure to these standards, as well as continuous training across all these different levels, we do the best we can to capture those. To memory, I can't think of a time where something like that slipped through. Every time I've ever encountered maybe a misalignment with our direction and a standard direction, it's in the development process. We catch it nice and early. We sort that out quickly so it doesn't make it to me. That being said, I would say the third and final is if something does not comply, we have a very robust quality management system where we're going to get that feedback from our customer. We're going to own it, take responsibility. We're going to get those corrective actions put back in front of our production teams or product development teams, and we're going to make sure that we both correct it for the product specifically that it didn't comply with, as well as for the process that allowed that to happen altogether. Refine our DFMEA process, our design failure mode analysis processes, our PFMEA or our product failure mode analysis processes so that we can catch those things early on. It's all about that initial work. Trying to. Yeah, I can't assume what people know right now. So
well said. No. And yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. That was okay. That was a really great answer, and you guys have caught those escapes, have those systems in place, and do an excellent job ensuring that, we're getting quality product out the door.
We certainly try our best. And I wouldn't want to quote numbers, but I know the facility has a very strong quality track record at the moment. It's a big thing that we pride ourselves on. On-time delivery is very important. Cost effectiveness is very important. But my team especially prides themselves on quality. They really, really do. So
as a company, look at our defective parts per million, and we're under our goal of 1,200 last year, which is a really big deal. That's that's hard to do in the industries that we serve, especially with sewing, where there's so many manual labor operations and room for error there.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Another big part is the overall volumes. As item complexity increases, typically volumes get relatively small. And when you're talking about defective parts per million, on job orders that may range from 1,000 to 100,000, just gives you very little wiggle room. So our compliance to that internal standard has been amazing. Between you and me, I didn't know that we'd be able to hold that once we started really managing that a couple of years ago. But the quality team has done a fantastic job getting to the root causes, especially systematically, making sure that we capture these failure modes early on in the development process as opposed to later on in the production process. So we don't really face the kinds of hurdles that are really caused by unknowns, right? Like as long as we can iron out all the potential places the process can take us, then we can understand how items might fail. Once we understand how they might fail, we can work backwards to resolve the problems before they happen. And we've become very proficient at that before it hits the production line.
Yeah, we've got a great quality team, and I like to call Dawn our enforcer of corrective actions. I keep wanting to get her a T-shirt that says that. I got to do that.
I bet you she'd wear it.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Sam, when it comes to challenges in manufacturing and kind of the trends in the industry, more things being automated and really the needs of our customer base and the world changing as fast as it is, some of the adaptability that we need to be prepared for. What are your thoughts on what Polo's facing and how we should work in this environment?
I think that Polo is actually situated in a pretty good space right now in regards to what's coming down the pipeline. You know, it feels like the biggest set of short-term concerns that the industries we serve have been taking on has really been logistics-based. Supply chains, anything that involves movement, you know, the pre-COVID to post-COVID, and now with all of the current American political environment, I think a lot of it is related to supply chains and how we can manage those efficiently while also keeping them robust. I think Polo is in a really good place for that, between having multiple domestic locations and a pretty wide scope of the United States and having partnerships in virtually everywhere in the world you can think of. We really can offer packaged solutions that both present whatever short-term option you might need now, as well as a future-proofing option of whatever the landscape changes might lead to. If you need us to pull all of the manufacturing into the United States, we can do that relatively easily. If you're looking for cost savings initiatives, we can get it to the near shore or offshore options where we can take advantage of low labor rates. If you want some kind of a more robust plan, we can split those processes across multiple locations. If all of a sudden your team feels it needs to go from one strategy to the next, we can do that relatively easily due to our product development systems. So, you know, I think most of the landscape is facing concern with where these logistics strategies are going to land and how are we going to stay in front of the curve for that. And I think Polo is in a great space to help serve those changing strategies. Now, is that going to always be people's focus? I don't know. That being said, I think that's always been a manufacturing focus. So I can't imagine it changing anytime soon.
Sure.
So I think we're very well positioned to support our customers or our potential future customers' needs, especially when it comes to what I think is the biggest challenge of logistic strategies.
What about robots, man? Automation. I'm joking, but I also heard something about projection of being billions of robots in the next 10 years. And that is a wild thing to consider. And I know that a lot of our customers are focusing more and more on automation. And so I just was curious what your thoughts are in that space.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge proponent of automation.
Right.
And it's certainly getting more and more economic. Automation's been around for a very, very, very long time. I think a lot longer than most people realize. Semi-automated processes have been around for what amounts to 100 years. The constraint with automation has always been cost. And even now, automation is exceptionally expensive. But with implementations of AI and with new programming strategies and out-of-the-box programming languages, with easier to access electronic components and advances in metals that allow us to produce some of these circuit pieces cheaper than ever, automation has become easier and easier to implement. I think for companies like Polo specific, we're naturally going to be inclined towards taking advantage of that. I mean, I know specific to my facility, we slowly are either turning fully manual operations into semi-manual ones or semi-manual ones into automated ones. I do think that we're going to begin continuing to adapt towards that. Are we going to be surrounded by robots anytime soon? I don't think so. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Boston Scientific videos. It's pretty amazing what those guys do, but I don't know how common of knowledge it is that those robots are following pre-programmed paths.
Right.
Where will this land in regards to manufacturing and medium to low volume manufacturing? I'm not really sure. I don't think it's necessarily going to be mass adopted for at least a couple of decades. The cost savings have been tremendous, but it's still not quite enough to be honest, as far as I'm concerned. That being said, I don't want to be correct about that. Everyone in my position wants automation. We want it now, fast, and in a hurry. So we're constantly looking for whatever the cutting edge piece will be that'll continue to drop those costs down. So, I mean, will we get there? Yes, we're slowly getting there. Are we going to be working 50% with robots anytime soon? I don't know. Hopefully. I'm not sure that I believe that.
Yeah. Polo prides itself on efficiency and end-to-end support. Can you give us an example of maybe a solution that you implemented or a time that you all went above and beyond for a customer that really demonstrates a success in your facility?
There's countless examples of that, to be honest with you. So I'll just give you the one that has happened most recently, as recent as a few weeks ago. We had one of our customers come to us, a longstanding customer of ours. It's been a very good, positive relationship. They asked for us to be able to, in essence, triple their output. Overall, that wasn't going to change their yearly volumes. They just wanted to pull some orders in. There's some natural constraints. Anytime you have a plan and you want to do it faster, do we have the stuff to do it? Do we have the people who can make them? The truth was we didn't. That being said, we honestly told the customer, look, at the moment, we're not sure that this is going to work, but let's see what we can do. Our supply chain team jumped into action. Our quality and product development team jumped into action, and we found a very good solution, I believe. Our supply chain team was able to negotiate the supply chain to be delivered a slight bit earlier. Our quality team and our product development team were able to qualify another one of our domestic facilities to produce this item exceptionally quickly. And then my team and that facility's team both communicated to make sure that they could get their production cell up and running. We ended up now dual pathing the production of this across two different domestic facilities in order to help fulfill those more aggressive deliveries. My understanding, hopefully this isn't news to you, I suppose, is that the sales team is hoping that this is going to be able to be used for leverage for some future opportunities with the customer. One way or the other, I'm just happy that we were able to serve them. I'm also excited that we're able to dual path these operations the way that we did. I mean, to be able to see so many different departments all jump within this whole time frame was about 4 days. Within a really tight time frame, move big hills, small mountains in order to get this improved output done, all without any promises of anything. I think really demonstrates the lengths that Polo is willing to go to serve some of our longstanding customers.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. And from a sales standpoint, thank you for makes it a lot more likely for us to be able to grow with that customer when we can pull in orders like that and come up with creative solutions and mitigate risk and have more redundancy, across plants and facilities. So really quick thinking and great collaboration. So great example. Where do you see your manufacturing facility in the next 5 to 10 years?
Hopefully in Topeka. Hopefully it hasn't walked off on me. I mean, I know we are planning on growing. I personally expect within the next 5 to 10 years for the facility to 2 to 2.5 times its current size. We right now specialize primarily in sewing. I'm confident that within the next 5 years, we're going to expand that to our other core competencies with sealing and with thermoforming. I'm hoping that we are able to onboard some additional complex products. Right now we have a mixed bag of complex products as well as relatively simple products. I imagine that as this facility grows and its talent increases, the complexity of the product lines that we run will continue to increase. other than that, I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot in store with the current facility I'm at. I do expect, though, that Polo's manufacturing arm is going to grow well beyond that as well. You know, I know that we're in a pretty good position at the moment. So my facility, about two to 2.5 times growth, and onboarding a couple of additional core functions. Yeah. And then likely the manufacturing growth will go outside of my facility. That's where I see it.
Yeah. Some clean room capability in there.
Clean room capabilities, yeah. Well, I suppose I don't know if I should say this. We're building a new building.
Yeah, right. No.
So since we're building a new building, I do expect that the current one we occupy will be transformed into a clean room so that we can offer that to our current customer base. And there's zero harm at all for us in doing that. We either use it for clean room operations or we don't. We're just cleaner.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. And I'm trying to get you all as a registered entity in SAM.gov, working with our Sergeant Major from the military division.
Awesome.
To get you guys some of those military products that we've been winning. So
cool.
So that's been fun and inefficient when it comes to that SAM.gov website and how to, and when you run into issues, it's like moving mountains, but it's fun.
Yeah, there's a reason when I was in product development, I strongly avoided our government projects. They can be a challenge.
In your opinion, what sets Polo Custom Products apart from other custom manufacturers?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the biggest thing is our adaptability. I think the fact that Polo has such a strong relationship in so many different parts of the world while maintaining a very solid domestic manufacturing foothold really sets us apart from our competitors. It almost doesn't matter where you want your items produced, where you want them delivered, how you want them delivered. We have not only the capability of executing on what it is that you need, but we've already done it for someone else at some other time. We've got a very robust history of manufacturing for 8 years now. And there's just not a lot of logistical challenges that we haven't had to serve already. We do a great job with our quality. We do a great job with manufacturing. We've got great engineers, great quality teams. But in my opinion, I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people have a lot of talented individuals working for them. The level of education and knowledge base, especially with the internet getting so big in the last 45 years, 35 years, is very widespread. So I think that holds us at a standard. But what really sets us apart is our ability to be flexible and adaptive to ongoing geopolitical climates.
How do you feel like Polo will adapt to some of the next big trends, whether that's geopolitical or AI or automation or wherever you want to take that?
You know, manufacturing, in my opinion, is really only looking for two kinds of adaptations. And what I mean by that is throughout the history of manufacturing, it's only looked for two styles of adaptations. One style of adaptation is cost. How can we make things cheaper? And then the other style of adaptation is function. How can we make things work better for us? You know, how do you do both of those things? There's a whole bunch of different ways, but how is Polo going to stay on top of it? It really comes down to expertise and having the work ethic to push through the unknown. You know, anytime you're faced with a challenge, there's going to be an element of, I don't know how to solve this. And with knowledge and grit, you're going to be able to push through those. How is Polo going to manage the upcoming flow of needs? We're going to do it through knowledge and grit. And by taking advantage of the way that we've already positioned ourselves to be exceptionally adaptable and flexible. How does that serve being knowledgeable and gritty? We have partnerships we can lean into. We have knowledge bases that aren't explicitly ours that we can learn from. We have people who can motivate us or we can motivate to help work with us. You know, we have a lot of help out there and a lot of people want to help us because we help them. The problem really comes down to what is it that we're trying to preemptively solve? And I don't know what those things are going to be. You know, maybe it is AI being very cheap to implement, and now all of a sudden a bunch of robots are actively working with us. How is Polo going to manage that? We're going to manage it by being in a position to acquire those items as economic as possible. We're going to have the knowledge base to implement them as efficiently as possible. Maybe it's a geopolitical issue. How are we going to manage that? Through leveraging our current established relationships across the world.
Right.
Being able to move our customers' production lines wherever it is that we need to ensure their success. We've positioned ourselves already greatly to be able to tackle whatever the unknown is coming down the pipe. But how are we going to do it? It's going to be through knowledge and grit.
Yeah.
Just like everyone else.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head, and your boss, Brian Weber, has spoken to how our team right now is just any problem that comes up, just rolling through them. And I think that you and your team are a great representation of that. I think that you all bring so much different value to our customers and come up with creative solutions all the time. And it's awesome to see what you're doing in your facility. I'm glad it's expanding, whether it's robots or humans in there. I'm looking forward to seeing the future at Topeka.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks for joining the podcast, Sam. This was fun.
It was my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet, man. And congrats.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.